going, guys? Welcome back to my channel and time for another episode of Luke's Reviews. On today's video, it's awards season, and that means that we are getting a slew of awards caliber films vying for contention for the big prize, the Oscars, later in a couple of months. Later on, I'll be sharing my thoughts of Alexander Payne's The Holdovers, but first up, Jonathan Glazer returns to the screen with a film that presents a shocking and very unique take on one of the ugliest moments in modern human history, the zone of interest. SS Commandant Rudolf Hoss lives with his family in a lavish, stately home, complete with maids and a blossoming garden to host parties and to cultivate together. And they live their normal, mundane lives approximately 10 meters from the gates of Auschwitz. Jonathan Glazer is one of those auteur filmmakers who doesn't need to fit a so-called quota of how many films he's making and how many he's releasing. The only time that he feels like he needs to put out a movie is when he has an idea in his head, he has a story, and he grabs a hold, and that is when my ears prick up. Whenever he has a new film coming out, it's very clear to me that he has an interest in what he's telling, so much so that he is moving heaven and earth to try and get that particular story and that film made. In the case of Zone of Interest, it is very clear why Glazer is so intrigued by this concept. Holocaust dramas, it goes without saying, are not for the faint of heart. You have films like Schindler's List and many more where they depict the savagery and the violence of life in concentration camps in full and unflinching horror. Glazer opts for a slightly different approach. The Zone of Interest is all about understanding the banality of evil and the ignorance of the people in Nazi Germany. The horror of the concentration camps are never visually depicted. We do not take a single step inside of Auschwitz. Instead, it's a towering, inescapable presence casting a thick shadow over the house and garden. But even when Auschwitz can't be seen on screen, Glazer and his team do tremendous work to create a chilling and searing sound design so that even though you might not be able to see the horrors of what is happening inside these concentration camps, you hear everything. Distant gunshots echo throughout the cinema, the faint engine of a train, chaotic screams. All of these fill the audience with such unimaginable dread, and it's only made worse because you are not able to have an escape of it being visually depicted in front of you. It's somewhat worse because you're left with your imagination, and at least for my imagination, that is conjuring up about 4 or 5 different possibilities, all of which are horrifying. Essentially, you are only being given half of a picture, and you are left to paint the other half. But whilst distant sounds and the ambience of death and suffering fill the air, the other impactful element to the film is the family and the characters' just complete ignorance to it all. The Hoss family are all nonchalant about this situation. For them, it's home. For them, the cries of the helpless and the slaughterhouse next door is just the norm. The only time it is ever explicitly acknowledged is when they're discussing things for their own materialistic benefits. Glazer powerfully places scenes of true abject repulsion to drive home the fact of how utterly flippant these people were. For instance, a package of clothes are dropped off at the Hoss family house, and the women are all rifling through which clothes they like, which they're going to keep, and it takes a second for the penny to really drop, and for the weight of what you're seeing sink in, but definitive answers are never given. Glazer doesn't give you that luxury. It is down to you, the audience, to make heads or tails of what is actually happening and whether or not you can stomach that. Glazer and cinematographer Lukasz Zal also make a very bold point of keeping the characters at a far distance. Cameras are kept static, mostly far shots as if the audience were silent observers, but it allows you to take in the surrounding areas and horror. And additionally, it never allows for close-ups, immediately eliminating any semblance of warmth or relatability. Mika Levi's score is also one of the best of the year. It is not a hugely prominent score, but when it is utilized, it will send chills to your bone. All of the performances are terrific. I'd probably say Sandra Hüller is the best, but she is detestable as a character who wraps this ignorance around her like it's a lovely warm blanket. Jonathan Glazer is in full command, giving us a film exactly the way he intended. An outstanding example of unique, audacious filmmaking. The choice to keep some distance between the audience and the focus was to allow yourself to appreciate and acknowledge the surroundings. Hearing the clap of gunshots can honestly fill you with dread, but when the Hoss family barely bat an eyelid, the true nature and the power of ignorance and how it begets evil is the true intention. It's very artsy and clearly not for everyone, but for anyone who is curious, I urge you to check it out. I'm going to give The Zone of Interest a 9.5 out of 10. Moving swiftly on as we turn towards another awards competitor, one that is also a Christmas movie. It's The Holdovers.
Sir, I don't understand.
That's glaringly apparent.
I can't fail this class.
Oh, don't sell yourself short, Mr. Coates. I truly believe that you can.
Every year at Barton Academy, students, faculty, and staff depart the campus for a 2-week winter break. But there are always an unfortunate few who have nowhere to go for the holidays. They're known as the Holdovers.
The year is 1970, and at a boarding school in New England, a group of students find themselves stranded with nowhere to go over the festive holidays. Ergo, they are subsequently stuck under the strict presence of Mr. Hunnam, a classics teacher at the school, and a grumpy one at that. One of the students, Angus, is frequently at odds with his teacher, neither one overwhelmingly pleased with their situation. However, over the course of the holidays, they soon begin to understand one another more and what they may have in common. The Holdovers is the definition of a very pleasing, good-spirited movie that, and I'm not kidding when I say this, it is a Christmas movie. Not just because of the time setting, because of the overall sense of togetherness and healing oneself that make The Holdovers a film that I can definitely see people wanting to rewatch year on year out. David Hemmingson's screenplay is full of wit and charm. Some of the characters come out with absolute zingers that really landed those comedy beats pretty well. But whilst it is a comedy, Hemmingson ensures that he scores the film with quite a strong twinge of emotion. Our three central characters are plagued by loneliness. Angus has been abandoned by his parents. Mary, the school's cook, is recently suffering a horrific tragedy. And Mr. Hunnam is just a man who is unwilling to let go of past mistakes and past trauma and how that has warped his sensibilities. But it is the spirit and overall bond between these actors and these characters that won me over. The chemistry that these three actors have is off the charts. They all deserve all of the acclaim that they are receiving right now. I know that if you look at how the acting race has been designated, Dominic Sessa has been put in Best Supporting. I know he hasn't got a Best Supporting Actor nomination, but I wouldn't necessarily pay heed to that. It is very much Dominic Sessa and Paul Giamatti leading the movie, with Divine Joy Randolph certainly as the Best Supporting Actress. But, that being said, Giamatti is outstanding in this. He imbues the character with such a deep and sarky cynicism that It's kind of hilarious to see him ripping into these students so savagely, but at the same time, there's so many deft little touches that Giamatti gets to bring to his performance that make this one of his strongest roles to date, and I honestly would not be surprised that if in a few weeks in March, he is standing up there holding the Oscar for Best Actor. Also, his character has a lazy eye in the film, and I do not know how they managed to pull it off. None of the cast and crew have revealed how it was done. I don't know if it's Paul Giamatti somehow being able to defy biology and allow his eye just to wander, or whether it was CGI or makeup. No one has revealed. I don't know how it was done, and I feel like I kind of need to know how it was done. Dominic Sessa, he is a name that you are going to be hearing a lot more of in the future, I can guarantee that. He reminds me of how Ezra Miller started their career. Let's hope that they don't fall off the rails like Ezra Miller did, though. Considering this is Sessa's feature debut, I thought he did brilliantly co-captaining this film, and as for Divine Joy Randolph, well, I honestly don't think that there is any competition to ruin her chances of winning Best Supporting Actress. I found myself so drawn into her character. Her introductory shot is essentially just her staring out of a window with a pained expression on her face. It's simple, but I was so compelled. I wanted to know more about her and what is troubling her. She's just incredible in this movie. Payne's film, look, it has its fault, and like most of his works, it's probably too long for its own good. There is easily about 15 minutes that could have been shaved off of this film, and in regards to the ending, it's a very wholesome, complete ending, apart from one aspect that I feel like the movie just had one more final thing to wrap up and it didn't. Maybe I'm looking into it too much and maybe I'm just being greedy, but there was one final moment that I feel like the film just needed and that never came. The Holdovers is a comforting watch that brilliantly balances the comedy and drama. The scale and scope of the film is small and personal, but it is carried by the strength of its performances and characters. Paul Giamatti deserves every bit of acclaim he is getting right now, and his character will likely go down as one of the most iconic teachers in film. Dominic Sessa and Divine Joy Randolph are just as good as well. Will The Holdovers be something I want to rewatch every year? Not necessarily, but I can see myself wanting to jump back in with this movie some point soon. I'm going to give The Holdovers a 7.5 out of 10. Anyway, guys, those are my thoughts on The Zone of Interest and The Holdovers. Let me know, have you had a chance to see these films yet? What did you think? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. But that's all the time we have for today, so thank you very much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.
Hello, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have, make sure to click that like button, and if you aren't already, click that subscribe button too.